Thank you. Many thanks to the Material Culture Forum for this program and its reminder to all of us of the quality of our collections and the integrity of the research at Smithsonian. The universe inspired many 20th century artists: Alexander Calder's space drawings and kinetic sculptures such as A Universe, Rufino Tamayo's Heavenly Bodies Reaching for the Moon, Isamu Noguchi's conceptual model of a sculpture to be seen from Mars, a land art proposal that you could only see if you were actually in outer space, and his gray sun, which some have read as the blazing corona visible during a solar eclipse. They were not the only artists turning their gaze skywards. In 1936, several artists, including Calder and Noguchi, signed the Dimensionist Manifesto, rallying artists to make works that responded to contemporary scientific discovery. And then we have Joseph Cornell, who was a half a generation too late to sign the manifesto, and his approach to science was not at all that of Calder, who held an engineering degree. Cornell's formal education was quite limited to a few years of high school at the Phillips Academy. His father's death prompted him to work to support his family. But he was awestruck by his high school astronomy class. In his words, it was about the idea of infinity. Compared to Calder's engineering background, Cornell was more of the physics for poets kind of student. And I don't mean this in a disparaging way. He was a thoughtful humanist, self-taught humanist. A lifelong insomniac, he drew the stars in his backyard off Utopia Parkway in Queens, and you see him here in his yard, and a feverish sketch of Gemini and Orion in relation to the maple tree. Both of these images, by the way, are from the Archives of American Art, and I won't go into how much I think Cornell could be a poster child for one Smithsonian. He voraciously read Scientific American, Christian Science Monitor, attended lectures at Hayden Planetarium, and frequently gazed at the ceiling of Grand Central Station, itself something of a gargantuan Cornell box. Cornell evenly absorbed influences, religious, didactic, vernacular, all part of a continuum. Noting in a diary in 1948, quote, "the significance of Christian science and its supreme power to meet any human need. I experienced it so beautifully as I rested in Grand Central waiting room until church, elated looking at the celestial blue heavens and golden constellations. And then I thought of the Milky Way stardust and scattering of breadcrumbs in the morning for the birds at home. For him, it was all of a piece." Yes, he really did just take us from Christian Science to the Milky Way in the breadcrumbs for the birds. But armed with this mastery of layman's literature on space, Cornell found poetry in the quotidian. He was mainly self-taught. His first collages earned praise in surrealist circles, and he continued to collage until his death in 1972, but he also made experimental films and shadow boxes. At first, Cornell worked out of his mother's kitchen, which he aptly called the observatory. And then in 1941, he moved the studio to the basement. And I'm sure there's something to say here about chaos, entropy, expanding universe in the microcosm of his studio. Actually, it was highly organized through a process he called cross-indexing, and I just circled one of the boxes because we'll see that one later. Each source carried multiple references, sometimes puns, and he built image files fundamental to his work, clipping broadly from across print culture, by which I mean antique engravings, children's books, star charts, some of which inspired him to splatter white paint over blue field. So his work is in the lower right, and the star charts are in the upper left. He juxtaposed images with small objects that caught his fancy from five and dime stores, seashells, bits of driftwood, really anything could become a source. And just to make this point, I show you the little sun on the metal box of Antipasto, which surprisingly resonates with a 1761 French engraving showing the phases of the moon. The Joseph Cornell Study Center at SAM houses much of what's remained, and through a generous grant from Joseph and Robert Cornell Memorial Foundation, we're in the midst of a 3-year project to better organize and rehouse these holdings. This is an incredible resource for decoding Cornell's highly personal, cryptic iconography, but it's kind of like pulling back the curtain on The Wizard of Oz, revealing a sheer volume, repetition, and at times, frankly, mundane sources. But how enlightening is it to realize that Cornell's lofty collage of John Copley's Boy with a Squirrel with the American West is pasted over with schematics from Golden Nature Guide for Young Adults. Cornell worked in series, finding a theme and returning to it over and over again throughout his very prolific career. Aviaries, ballerinas, opera and its divas, but celestial sources permeated his life's work. And it's telling that his personal library within the study collection contains some 63 titles and 92 books on some aspect of astronomy and space exploration. Noted Cornell scholar Linda Hartigan, who was a curator at curator of SAM's 2006 exhibition, Navigating the Imagination, had said, "Celestial navigation became Cornell's primary metaphor for extended travel across time and space, and between the natural and spiritual realms." And I just wish to highlight the work of Kristen Hoving, whose book on Cornell and astronomy dissects his celestial-themed works. Hoving asserts Cornell used cross-indexing to refer to scientific ideas about the physical universe. Bubbles, in particular, were important metaphors for exciting new ideas. And she calls out Georges Lemaitre's mathematical demonstration of the 1920s, showing the universe was expanding rapidly, or as he put it, like a giant soap bubble. And this is actually a book from Cornell's collection. Cornell's soap bubble set is one in a series that he called planetariums. And you can see the 2 clay pipes that are mounted vertically are suggesting child's play as much as they are the expanding universe itself. We are meant to pick up this box and watch the white sphere roll across the star map that's on the back. The cordial glasses with driftwood and coral may, according to Hoving, symbolize the oceans whose tides are set by gravitational pull. Each cylinder is pasted with a natural history illustration, from sea urchins to a nautilus shell, but the central one is Deneb, the most luminous star in the constellation Cygnus, which is, of course, the swan. And I think Cornell might have cross-indexed this with his favorite ballet, Swan Lake, subject of many of his other boxes. Cornell's boxes and collages are not meant to illustrate science literally, of course. You could no more use his map to read the night sky than you could contain the oceans in that cordial glass. But his art charts a path back to the 18th century soap bubbles painted by Chardin and Galileo's discoveries, leaving us to ponder, after centuries of scientific discovery, how we still refer to the stars and constellations by their Greco-Roman mythological names. Cornell collapses the lore of the heavens with earth-shattering 20th century scientific discovery, reconciling the Greek myth with the Hubble telescope, delivering to us a universe in a box that we can hold. And I want to point out that he does this in the age of Sputnik. While escalating fears of aerial warfare, he is creating reminders, quote, from a glorious past when the majesty of the heavens inspired poets, astronomers, and musicians. Thank you.